Welcome back to the channel. Today we're here and we're talking about Wrexham Football Club. Today we have got a lot to be talking about. We're going to be reviewing that 2-1 home defeat against Norwich City on Saturday. We're going to be talking about a host of Wrexham AFC transfer news, and we're going to be previewing our game tomorrow at home to Leicester City. Before we get going in today's video, if my voice sounds a bit funny, I've got a bit of a cold. I don't blame you if you click off halfway through if it's annoying you, because I would probably do the same thing, but you might have to bear with me at times. Today, like I said, we're going to be talking all things Wrexham Football Club. If you are looking for the best Wrexham content, it's coming your way on the channel. Make sure to get down there and click the red subscribe button. We're on the road to 29,000 subscribers. Let's as well go for 450 likes on today's video, and without further ado, we're going to start by talking about our loss on Saturday. So after 5 excellent wins on the bounce for Wrexham, it's come to an abrupt end at home at the racecourse ground as relegation candidates Norwich City beat us on home soil for the first time in 127 days. It's the first time since our 3-1 home loss to QPR that Wrexham have been defeated at the racecourse ground, and today I'm going to be breaking down what is kind of an unexpected poor performance from Wrexham, because we were on such good form, obviously beating the likes of Sheffield United, Preston, Blackburn, Nottingham Forest less than a week ago in the FA Cup, to now Norwich City, who were third off bottom. It just was so uncharacteristic from Wrexham, and if we are talking on the first half, I think that's where sort of the game was determined for Wrexham. In the first 10 minutes, we sort of got an indication that Norwich are one of these teams that are just going to be like what we saw earlier in the season. Any team with 2 or 3 good attacking midfielders who are going to not be afraid to take on our midfielders and defenders with their pace, with their sort of, skillful mindset, we're going to struggle. And the first 10 minutes obviously gave me shades of the Wrexham we saw earlier in the season, on the back foot, conceding a goal in the opening 10 minutes. Could have gone 2 or 3-0 down in the first half, but we're just looking at the midfield. It was so open, which it just invited a lot of pressure from Norwich City. They had players who had obviously got confidence from their win against Walsall in the FA Cup, and they've sort of picked up a bit of form under new manager Philippe Clement. But again, we just know at this level, if you invite that amount of pressure and if you just let the opposition have the ball in the final third going forward, you're going to get punished, and that's exactly what happened. We saw Slimane come into the box unmarked and put away one of the easiest goals I think he'll score in his career, and I think the fact that he was able to travel sort of midway through our half right into the penalty box completely unmarked, ran in a straight line, I think sort of sums up that midfield performance from Wrexham. I'm not having a complete go. This isn't me saying it's the be-all end-all, but in a game like this against Norwich City, where we should have come in with so much confidence, 5 wins on the bounce, Norwich City, struggling to survive, struggling to get points in the Championship, then I think we should be looking at this and it's a game that we should have won. And like I said, I think that's a problem that we've seen from Wrexham throughout the season. We seem to sort of struggle against fast, explosive and expressive midfield all across the division. It's been on the odd occasion, we've not seen it from every team, but there'll be that 1 or 2 performances, in each half of the season where they'll come in, they'll play with so much pace going forward, and Wrexham just won't know how to deal with it. And whether that's sort of the change in midfield selections, we've seen a lot of people saying Matty James should never have been dropped, Ben Sheaf and George Dobson don't work together. At this moment in time, I'm not really saying anything, because we've got 5 wins on the bounce. It's hopefully just a blip in the road for Wrexham. We were going to lose sooner or later. It wasn't going to continue forever, because there's good teams in this division no matter where they are in the table. But again, we're not blaming the players too much. We're not really getting annoyed or angry about this performance, because there's no point. We go again tomorrow against Leicester City. There's no point looking at this and dwelling on it for 3 or 4 days, because we just need to forget about it. Yes, it's a loss. We're in an amazing position in the league. We've got a big challenge coming up. And I think if you are looking at the first half as well, they could have made it 2-0 minutes later, but we weathered the pressure early on. They hit the crossbar, and yet another Sam Smith goal brought us level. What a time he's having up front for Wrexham. He's really doing a good job, just putting himself about, offering that consistent press. But you're looking after the equaliser, the trajectory of the rest of the first half completely changed, but nothing came of it from Wrexham, and we really should have made the most of it, because annoyingly, if Wrexham would have gone into the break 2-1 up, I think we go out in the second half and win 3 or 4-1. That's just the type of game it would have been. We know the Championship, we know how obviously a goal can just completely change a game. We saw it in the first half, and I think we do go on to win that game comfortably. But you've got to give your kudos to Norwich City, because in the second half, they were the better team. You just have got to admit, yes, it was a mixture of Wrexham being poor, but Norwich City on the other hand, defending, I thought they were quite good. Their keeper obviously made that amazing save from Nathan Broadhead, and you just look at their second goal, brilliant finish, nothing we could have done. Yes, should we have lost the ball in our penalty box and then about 10 seconds later they go up and score? No, but can you knock the finish from the Norwich City striker? Not at all. It was a perfectly placed goal into the bottom corner, and you've got to give credit where credit is due, but it was the defining moment in the game, and that is the Championship in a nutshell. If you're not at the races, you're going to get punished, and any team can beat you in this division no matter where they are in the table, and Norwich City proved that on Saturday. But again, it was just a very uncharacteristic performance from Wrexham given recent events in the FA Cup, in the league. Yeah, it's not one to sort of dwell on for too long, but it's a disappointing result nonetheless. Talking on transfer news now, a big bit of news regarding a departure from Wrexham Football Club. James McClean, after 2.5 seasons at the club captain McClean has left by mutual consent to return home back to Derry City on a multi-year deal. Of course, Derry City is where McClean started his career off before getting that move to the Premier League for Sunderland in 2010. So he always said he wanted to return back home to Derry City, and he's done exactly that. We were sort of aware of the rumours. I think it was quite apparent that James McClean was going to leave Wrexham either in January or at the end of the season. In my opinion, the rumours sort of died down. We saw them circulating about a month ago saying McClean was set to join Derry City, obviously returning back home to Ireland, but it sort of died down a bit, and then 2 hours before kick-off against Norwich City, you see on Twitter, you see on Facebook, all across social media, James McClean is set to join Derry City. He's not involved in the matchday squad. Completely out of the blue, 2 hours before kick-off, you're expecting to see his name on the bench, or at least, maybe even on the team sheet given recent events and Phil Parkinson's selection choices. But it was crazy because we only saw him play on Friday night against Nottingham Forest in that big FA Cup fixture, and then, just a week on from that, he's departed for Derry City. But I think it was always going to be apparent he was going to leave, like I said. But to leave in January, our club captain, it's a big miss because I'm sure he was a big character and a big influence on the team's success, not only this season but over previous seasons, and he was a good leader for the players that were coming into the club. So I think it's going to be a big miss off the pitch. But I think for McClean, personnel-wise, I think the timing was completely right. I think he's 36, 37 years old, and he was in and out of the side, but he was never going to be that number one starter in Phil Parkinson's eyes. He was coming off the pitch for, the last 10-15 minutes, and the odd game where Libby Kakachi would be injured and, Kabore was in AFCON. That's when McClean would be called upon. It was never McClean, coming into the starting 11 because he was Phil Parkinson's number one choice. I think it was good for him to obviously sort everything out behind the scenes. He said Wrexham sorted everything out perfectly, allowed him to go back home comfortably. And I think if you are looking at James McClean, it just does seem like yesterday that, I was on holiday 2.5 years ago and I rushed home to see the news that Wrexham had put a bid in and Wrexham had signed James McClean from Wigan Athletic, and how that proved out to be one of the most important signings under Phil Parkinson, even in the Robin Ryan era, because we were entering the EFL for the first time in 15 years. We needed players with experience in that league. We needed a leader in the dressing room who was going to solidify our place back in League Two, make it a comfortable, first season back in the EFL. And he did more than that. He guided us to promotion, and then the following season he captained us from promotion to League One to the Championship. 31 goals and assists in 108 appearances. Would always play for the badge, would always give 110%. And I think that's why he was such a big fan's favourite at Wrexham Football Club. He'll be missed, his passion will be missed, but I'm sure other fans of other clubs are so glad to see this happen. But McClean, we wish him the best of luck. What a servant he was to this football club, and yeah, we wish him all the best of luck back at Derry City. As soon as I finished recording this video, I go on Twitter and I've seen Matty James has signed a new deal at Wrexham until the end of the 26-27 season. Massively deserved. He's been one of our best players so far this season in the Championship. His experience, his quality on the ball, his knowledge of this league has really helped us. So it's a well-deserved contract extension for Matty James. He should be one of the first names on the team sheet every single week because, like I said, just his quality on the ball, we've seen it so many times in the Championship, is something that we are so lucky to have, because we signed him on a free. Bristol City let him go. Bristol City in the Championship thought he wasn't good enough, but there were a couple of questions made of his time for us in League One, but he's the type of player that takes that step up to the Championship and just suits the Championship so much more, because, like I said, he's one of our best players, provided us some big moments so far this season. Well-deserved Matty James, and one that I think a lot of fans will be happy about. Talking on a potential signing now, transfer news for Wrexham in terms of incomings has been radio silent, but there's one name that keeps cropping up in a few different articles, and it first came from French outlet L'Equipe, where 26-year-old midfielder Kalidou Sidibé, who currently plays in the second tier of French football, has been linked with Wrexham Football Club. He's also been linked with Oxford United, and it's rumoured that he will make a switch to English football in this January transfer window. If you're looking at him, he's played in the second tier of French football this season. He's played 16 times, and I think the main feature about Sidibé is he stands at a staggering 6'7". So there's no doubt that he would be a midfielder that would just be a powerhouse, would be a complete powerhouse, would keep the structure in the midfield really well. He wouldn't take any prisoners, and there are a couple of highlight clips, highlight reels on YouTube, TikTok, etc., where you look at that and he looks very good on the ball, a tough tackler, and someone that you can rely on them to just run the midfield really well, will be that anchor in midfield. He can do the defensive duties really well. He can obviously be that tackler, can go forward with the ball. His technical ability looks really good, and if you're looking at a player 6'7", you're not turning that down. And 26 years old, he's in the prime of his career. He's played in the French Ligue 1, he's played obviously in the second tier of French football, so now is obviously his time to move on. We've seen him at Guingamp in France, where he's out of contract in the summer, so they're reportedly putting him up for a reduced price. He's unlikely to sign a new deal in the summer, so they'd rather offload him for a lower transfer fee that they currently value him at than completely lose him on a free in the summer, because at this moment in time, you know, he's had a good season. If there's English teams looking, that'll obviously bump the price up a bit. I think they could get a solid transfer fee for him. It's whether he's worth it, and I think it's the main question, whether Wrexham need another midfielder. Is that the priority for Wrexham for the second half of the season? Is a midfielder going to be the player that takes us into the playoffs and takes us to possible promotion to the Premier League? It's another question that you do have to ask yourself, but if we are looking at a player like him who's 26, he obviously carries a lot of attributes, good defensively, can provide that good cover in the central defensive midfield role, and has good defensive attributes as well as going forward. He's just an all-round good midfielder. If we can get him for a good reduced price, I won't have any complaints, because if you are looking at current midfielders that might leave Wrexham, the likes of Elliot, the likes of Andy Cannon, like Phil Parkinson said in his press conference, or in his interview that he did make about potential signings at the club, he said if Wrexham were to lose players in the transfer window, it's important that they do look to replace them. So losing Andy Cannon and bringing Sidibé in, I think is obviously makes sense, because it's sticking by Phil Parkinson's words. It's just whether we need another midfielder into the ranks. Is that Wrexham's main priority? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. We've also seen as well, Phil Parkinson has confirmed that Elliot is set to leave Wrexham Football Club on loan. We heard that about a week ago now. Nothing's sort of materialised from that. Where Elliot will go in this transfer window, we don't know. I do believe he'll get a League One move. What I am thinking, I was thinking last night about Paul Mullin as well. You're looking at Burton Albion. I'm not saying it's an ambitious project, it's the move they need, but you look at recent events in previous transfer windows, the signings that we've made to Burton Albion, would we be looking to sort of keep that relationship alive? Would that be a good challenge for Elliot, Paul Mullin? Elliot no doubtedly could probably be at a team in the top 10, but Paul Mullin, could that be a good challenge for him? We really don't know. I think Burton Albion could be a good destination there, an ambitious team who have done some decent results this season in League One. They could be doing a lot better. They're in the relegation zone, but if they are to add a player like Elliot or Paul Mullin in, that will obviously boost their chances of survival. It'll be a good challenge for them, but again, I'd like to see them play higher, but you have just got to think in that sense, could that make sense on that front? And finishing off the video with a look ahead to tomorrow's game at home to Leicester City. Yes, Leicester City, former Premier League champions. 10 years ago, they were in the middle of their Premier League winning campaign, whilst Wrexham Football Club was sat 11th in the National League, just coming off the back of a 3-1 home defeat to Woking. and 10 years on, Wrexham faced them in a championship fixture, with Wrexham sitting higher in the table and both sides pushing to break into the championship playoffs. It's crazy how football works, it's crazy how the world works, because Leicester City were a team that broke the odds. It's a story that world football will remember for the entire eternity. You know, I remember just watching them and becoming sort of a fan of the club because of how well they were doing, the likes of Vardy, Kante, Drinkwater, Mahrez. It's a team you remember, and I think it's a team that, you know, every football fan that season had a soft spot for, because it was an incredible story, and to see us playing them in a league fixture now is just completely crazy. And if you even look back, they won the FA Cup in 2021, they won the Community Shield, so it's a big challenge for Wrexham Football Club. Just because they're below us in the table doesn't mean that they're not going to give us a tough test. It'll be in their DNA to be a tough team to beat, and like I said, we might be a few places above them in the table, but they're going to give us a similar test to what we get off the likes of Coventry, the likes of Middlesbrough, Ipswich, the teams that are at the top end of the table, because ultimately, yes, they're 13th, but they have such quality and abundance in their squad. Fatawu, they've got Jordan James, they've got just really good quality players who have the ability to win a game in, you know, a single moment of magic. And in my opinion, they're massively underachieving given, like I said, the quality they do have in this squad. And most recently, they gave league leaders Coventry City a tough run for their money. They went 1-0 up, they couldn't get the win, they lost 2-1, but I think it's a sign that they're going to be a really tough team to break down. They're going to be good defensively, the low to mid block. They're going to have Jordan James in midfield, who we know all about, who's a very good midfielder, obviously plays for the Wales national team. We will link with him in the summer. It's going to be a tough test. If Wrexham are to win, I think it'll be as big of a win as what we've had against the likes of, you know, Coventry City at home. I think it's going to be a massive win if we can get 3 points. And I think on our front, it's a massive test of the character for us to respond to that defeat at home to Norwich City. It's a game that Wrexham are capable of winning if we're on it, if the fans are good, if the atmosphere is good, if we make it a hostile place for Leicester City, and if we pick the right starting 11. It's down to Phil Parkinson. What changes does he make? Because ultimately it didn't work on Saturday. Changes do need to be made. I'm not saying wholesale changes. I think changes just do need to be made. 1 or 2 maybe. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What do you think the score is going to be, and what changes would you make? So that is it for today's video. If you did enjoy, make sure to drop a like. Make sure to get down there as well and click the red subscribe button. Like I said, we're on the road to 29,000 subscribers, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys. Let's hope for a big 3 points tomorrow against Leicester City. Up the Championship Reds.